Hey, Krista, Lynn. I'll pull you up right after the intro. This will give me time to share it around. How's it going, everybody? Let me just turn that off. Still in my ear. Thanks for coming in. We got another show. It's going to be an exciting show with Krista, Lynn. Let me just do a couple of things here real quick. Sorry I didn't get them out of the way earlier. I want to thank everybody for your continued love and support and contributions, because we couldn't be doing this. 1,600 shows. We couldn't be doing this without everybody. So, on behalf of Morgan and I and the Soulogy family, just want to say thank you. I'm going to share this over to SoulogyOneStudios page. If you haven't got over to the Facebook SoulogyOneStudios page and liked it, we sure could use the like. And I'm going to share it to the Soulogy group. If you haven't gone over to the Soulogy group, it's a public group. Everything's public in it. It's open to everybody. We got about 27,000 people in there. A very active group. There's a lot of posts, a couple hundred posts every day. So, yeah, if it resonates with you, you might want to do those two things. And if these shows resonate with you, most of all, please share, because we're being heavily suppressed on social media, particularly Facebook. And we could use the help. So if you could share it to your page or to one group, that'd be great. All right, let's bring Krista, Lynn up here and meet a new friend, find out what's happening. Okay, you're good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you doing? It's good to meet you. It's good to see you.
You too.
Thanks for coming in today, and
thank you for having me.
Sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. It's good to. Now, what part of the world are you in?
Right now I'm in Park City, Utah. Yeah.
I was there 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was up in what's that? Provo. I was in Provo.
Yeah, Provo's a little south of Salt Lake, and this is a little east, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm house sitting. So that's my world right now is I just travel around and pet sit.
I know quite a few light workers that do that. There's nothing wrong with that. How's the weather? Is it snowing over there?
Yeah, I don't know if I that's out my window right now.
Yeah.
Pretty beautiful.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. I didn't cover this. I don't do everything professionally, but because you haven't been on before, I want to go ahead and read this bio. Okay. Krista Lynn Wakefield is a multidimensional traveler who connects directly to source by living quietly and listening to the void and voice beneath the heartbeats. She's been learning to surf the waves of motion and stillness for the past 2 years. guided to connect people, places, and beings through her own presence when invited. Krista works with clients one-to-one, acting as kind of a tuning fork for self-love and opening to our innate wholeness. Her new offering, the Sovereign Course, should be available soon as an online location and play space to meet other multidimensional explorers and find creative inspiration. In the meantime, you can reach her on Facebook, Messenger, and/or friend requests, or by connecting on LinkedIn. I don't know how to pronounce that because I've never attempted to, but it's kind of a strain.
LinkedIn.
So, so you've been doing this for a couple of years. Now, this part of what you described in the bio, but when did you come to terms with the world isn't what we were told it was? Was it through the traditional lightworker method of severe traumas happening successively?
Yes. I think the trauma started around like soon after birth, probably.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely have had that, that crazy ride since, 2012, 2010, 2012, where stuff really started to get shook. And, the old ways of doing things just stopped working the way they did before.
Everything did, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I say this all the time on the show. The reason I like talking about this stuff is because there's a lot of people, and you would know this because you work with people the last couple of years. But there's a lot of people, for lack of a better expression, waking up, and they go through the same things we all did. They think they're crazy. Things don't work the way they used to work. We're pushed out to move forward in ways that are totally atypical, unique, and rare. At least they were, such as house sitting or pet sitting for people, and this traveling hobo-ish type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can relate to that. Have you been on the road for a while?
Yeah. I left the San Francisco Bay Area in beginning of 2018. I think I headed out March 1st. So yeah, I mean, so my old life was I've never really been somebody that had a completely traditional life. So in some ways, navigating the new has been a little bit gentler on me, or easier for me, maybe.
Yeah.
I was always a little more artsy. I don't have kids. I never got really into like a heavy duty, deeply entrenched career where I was, really, really locked into it. But I did work in the film and television industry for many years.
Wow.
And sort of started out there when I was quite young, and then moved away from it, went back to school, got a couple of degrees, changed a couple things, and then ended up sort of oddly enough back in documentary film.
So you were entrenched in the matrix a little bit.
Well, yeah, I was.
You were subjected to.
Yeah, but I mean, I've noticed that a lot of people that I see coming into these changes now, and I think it's awesome, but it's approaching it sort of from a, they're coming onto the runway from this direction, and I came from this direction a little. Is a lot of people that I've met that are in this waking up process now are women who were super powerful, executive type A kind of personality, juggling, doing the mom thing, and a high pressure job, and
Overcompensating for the masculine.
yeah,
Hey,
and and then and then they have this sort of epiphany that
no
um,
mas.
right. So when I say I'm not like that, I just mean
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
wrote a little bit more of a
yeah, I get it. I get it.
weird
Well, you
weirdo
can't.
wave.
Yeah, I mean, I get that totally. So you did documentaries. That's interesting. We might have to talk later.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about in your bio, you talk about silence and stillness, and I like the way you describe it because it doesn't go into like specific modalities and processes. You're basically finding the space that you found for yourself, and it sounds like you're sharing it with your clients as a conduit. How did you come across that? Did you have any faces of the universe that were speaking to you, such as galactics or angelics or divine essences? How did you come across this?
No, I've I've been more and more in touch in the last, as I said, sort of since 2012 is when well, when I met my twin counterpart, is where I really, you know, s- got activated. And then 2016, I would say, is where I really started meeting people online that
Hmm.
were maybe a little farther along these paths that you're talking about. I at that point had not um I still thought that stuff was pretty like cuckoo sounding,
Right,
honestly
right.
at that point.
What's
Um,
what's changed since 2016, if anything?
well, that's when I realized that I was a twin, and that, and then I in trying to understand what that relationship was all about,
Mm,
I ended up just meeting more and more practitioners. At
hmm.
first, the tarot reader type,
Hmm.
things, or people that do uh, activations. I think I sort of stumbled. I guess I want to say one of the first things probably that is the most interesting part of maybe waking me into more familiarity with the the galactic, the angelic, the dragons, all of this stuff that we're starting to talk about almost normally. Some of us, anyway, are starting to
We
understand.
are the normals now.
Yeah,
We
we
are
are
the normals.
we're the new normal, right? But
Hmm.
um
S-
yeah, I came upon some light language
mm.
um stuff online.
Now, oh, okay. So you came across it online.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't start speaking it right away. I do now.
Hmm.
And now it comes out every day, and I let it go. I let myself explore what that is for myself every
Yeah,
day.
we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to go back to something you said earlier because there's a lot of confusion. I don't think anybody's got it right, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody's got the answers, the full answer on anything going on. Because I don't see anybody walking on water out there or flying through the sky like Superman. But you brought up the term twins, and of course, it's been bastardized and it's been, it's just been embellished and exaggerated, and but there's obviously something to it, whether it be romantic or not, in all that case. I just want to get your take on it because I think that's how we figure all this stuff out, how we expand and grow and exchange soul codes is by talking about this stuff. So what does that mean to you? You said that you realized you were a twin, and you don't have to get into anything you don't want to. Uh, what is your understanding of that? What was the value of it? Because you talked about it happened, I think, in before this second leg of it. So what was that like? What does it mean to you? And what did it do to you?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I talked to Shanine about that for a whole hour, so I definitely don't want to stay on that, the whole time I'm talking to you, because there's so many other things to talk about. But well, it was a relationship for me. In my case, it was started out as a normal relationship. Um, a person that I met and was with in a traditional relationship, and then split with, and who I still have a kind of a relationship that I think both he and I would understand is very special, and at the same time very uncomfortable
Mm,
at times.
at times. Yes.
But so just to, not go off into the story about it too much, because I think that's really where we get so messed up and funky about it as humans, is the romantic aspect of it. I met this person who both embodied it on paper, I like to say, or sort of like if you took the laundry list of our perceptions of ourselves when we met, we were very opposite, very very
Of course,
you know
polar opposites.
polar
But
opposites.
what did it do? What was the impact on you? You don't have to get into the story. What was the impact on you? What did it do for you? How did it serve you?
It well, so yeah, in that opposite, this is where I began to understand that later, after we weren't together that way anymore, that it was important in some way, and that it was doing something profound to me. Um, that when we came together and knew that our personalities were that opposite, sort of Dharma and Greg, opposite of life choices and personalities up to that point. But then this love, was also there. And so, of course, when we were actually together, we had to navigate that as in a romantic context. But what I've come to understand about that relationship, as far as how it affects me in my personal journey, is, as I said to Shanine, I mean, I realized I fell in love with myself in the light of this other person, this other person's frequency.
Mm-hmm. But how did that serve you? How has it served you? Has it helped you expand? Has it helped you find your own shadows? Has it helped you to accept polarities in other people beyond this person who you refer to as your twin?
Yes. All those things.
And so, and we'll leave this one behind, but so when you come together like that, like you said a minute ago, these times when you come together and light each other up, what's that like? What are the dynamics of that, the energy of it, the frequency of it? What's the outcome of it?
Well, at this point for me, because I have embraced the understanding of this paradigm that this other person is this reflection of myself, with whom this very deep love is embodied in another human. What it's enabled me to do is when we trigger each other, when we come together.
When you come together, do you trigger each other?
Yes.
Okay, and then
Yep.
what's the outcome from there? How do you take on that trigger into yourself and not project it on the other person? I mean, I'm assuming this is the path that you're on, or
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe if it's not, maybe that's why you keep coming back together to trigger each other, remind each other to go back to yourself. But what's your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be able to be together. That hasn't, the mutual sense of what it is and what we're doing, we're not in union right now, but not in the 3D. In the higher realms, absolutely, there's a sense of partnership. So that's there. But in the physical, what happens, I feel from my side, I can't really speak for him. I think it's quite uncomfortable for him. And I actually identified a lot with another talk you had, the couple of guests ago. You were talking pretty deeply about the divine masculine with another male. So I get that a lot of that's coming up right now collectively, but my own experience of it has been, I now understand the triggers. So say we come together, I was staying with him for a while between travels. So, we would I'd stay with him for a few days here and there. And, we love each other, and we'd end up upsetting each other, also. And so the trigger, when I experience it now, I don't stay in trigger, but for more than a few minutes, or, maybe an hour or something like that. It's become a very, for me, on my side of it, a relatively gentle trigger. I'm able to transmute it pretty quickly through the recognition that this other person is only reflecting back to me that which I could not see in myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
So,
there's people, I've talked to people that and I respect everybody's reality. They have what they refer to as a twin, or whatever you want to call it, a consort, that is not incarnated,
yeah.
that they have a relationship with. Then you have other situations like your own, like Morgan and I's, where you have a etheric relationship, where a lot can happen and a lot of work can be done. Then you have the physical aspect, and I kind of break that up into two different versions I've heard. One is you have twin, and I don't really understand all the terms, but they don't make sense to me. But you have a twin who's basically a catalyst, who comes in high and hard and really jolts you. Some of those that I've kind of kept apprised of continue to come back, like you described.
Yeah.
Some of those go on to other relationships. I don't think, whether it's in any of these cases, that there is anything absolute in terms of, oh, this is it and there's no other one. I don't know if that's true or if it's not true. I don't, like everything else, I don't think we know anything.
Right.
But I'm just trying to get to the experiential part of it, because people are faced with this every day. Everybody, when they get right down to it, if they can get past their own their own BS and self-talk and shadow, everybody wants a partner. I mean, it's and obviously it's got a connection to the intermarriage inside of us, but so it is something that's out there a lot, and that's why I was exploring that. But
Yeah.
you said there was a lot more to talk about. What would you like to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have a particular agenda. I'm still sort of in shock that Morgan even invited me on the show. So, um, uh, I don't know. I mean, you asked me about my experience of galactics and, that kind of all of that stuff. And I don't know that I really got to an answer about that. So we could certainly.
Yeah. Well, I thought what you had said is it really hadn't happened, or you hadn't.
Well,
Not that it matters because it doesn't make anything right or wrong, but I mean, um, do you have specific universal energies that you communicate with in a channel, or that type of thing?
well, what's happened for me is and especially this last quiet place where I am right now. So I've been traveling. Let me back up just a tiny bit. So I left my home, and sort of basically got out of the Bay Area about 2 years ago, and sold everything, packed everything up. Yeah, I don't have a home to go back to at this point.
Join the club.
And
Join the club. This is the new ordinary.
yeah. But as you probably have experienced, that can get a little exhausting as well. I mean, especially if you're doing it solo, which I've mostly been doing.
I've done both.
I've been all over, Europe.
So how does that tie into what essences you're connecting to and channeling and that type of thing?
Well, it ties in because so kind of going with the flow, I have been traveling, and at the same time I was like, I'm having all of these experiences where I'm meeting people. I'm obviously having these exchanges and these downloads, but physically I was getting quite exhausted. I kind of longed for home. That also made me sort of long for the twin and wanting to create a home or whatnot, which I don't is not really appropriate right now. And what happened is this particular house sit that I'm in now in Park City got offered to me, and it's close to 10 months long. So I came back here. I mean, I said yes to this particular house sit. My twin is also here in Utah. So that, that piece of the puzzle is that why am I in Utah? Something about the twin relationship. I ended up in Utah. I mean, I would not have chosen Utah as a home base through my normal rational decision-making process, but I find myself here. And then because of that, I was offered this situation to be in one place for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, and this is where this does tie back in again. I was given exactly what I needed. This has been the journey that's been really interesting to me since 2016, and where these activations started to happen. I did a session with Kalina Malnar, who, that later led to my own sort of light language activation. I've done work with Susanna Mara. I've had these activations with people that I've interacted with that have awakened a lot of my own process, but really until I got to a place where I could just be, which is where I am now. I am in a home where I do not have to worry about paying rent. I feel at home. I don't have to get up and start moving again. I have everything I need around me. I have money now. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, and I have a bit of a cushion now that I didn't have before. So that was not something that I asked for. It is not something that I expected, but it came. And so now what has come is this allowance to just be in my body. I don't have to work. I don't have to try to find clients. I don't have to do anything. I mean, I literally don't have to do anything.
So let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm not interested in the story.
Yeah.
Just like you said, you're not interested in the story. We all know the story. We've all been through it. It sounds like you're doing something very, very profound. You're moving into alignment. The human aspect has a little bit of an issue with it because we can't believe it's fucking real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So it's real. All
Right.
right. You're in a great place. You got money, you got resources, and you're like everybody else. You put your shoes on the same way and you put your pants on the same way.
Right.
What is going on with you? Where are you at?
Right.
And this is where I'm getting at. Who are you talking to? Who are you communicating with? What are you connecting to?
Yeah.
How is that being expressed from you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How are you pulling in all these multidimensional aspects and connections and living to the trajectory of becoming a divine or being a divine human being, which obviously your life, this story leading up to this point right now is evidence of it, the alignment that you're having.
Right. So what's happened to me in this quiet space that has now been gifted to me is my understanding that that gift to me is source, and that I am source. For me, the experience has been that I've gone straight to that. I mean, some people.
Yeah. So it's
have,
one voice. It's one voice. It's one voice.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I get that. And and many people have said that to me, especially young people. I don't know what's up with that, but no, I get that. And one of the things I think that's happened to people like yourself, like myself, if they did have essences and star family or dragons or whatever the case is, that were, say, the primary communicators or connections, over time they began to embody them. So that voice became 10 voices, 8 voices, 6 voices, and one voice. So I think that's personally, I think that I experienced some of that.
Yeah.
I still get some of the other stuff, and I don't really worry about how that all works, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so now I experience some of those things, but it's not like, so-and-so from the galactic, whatever, coming and talking to me. It is just me. I understand that it is all me. And so I have had experience of the angelic. I drove to Moab when I first got here.
I've been there.
Yeah. I rescued this little Turkish girl who, I'm driving her to Moab the first day that I was here and coming back. But I felt I was driving home and or back to this place, which was about to be my home for the next 10 months. And I felt my wings, literally wings, unfold in the car while I was driving. And I was crying, while I was driving, but not out of sadness, but out of a kind of a joy, and I just felt this unfolding, and and I understood that this is me, like that this is an aspect of me. This is where you start to sound a little crazy to normal people, but
No,
uh, um,
you're with the
so
crazies. You're with the crazies now. We're all
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. No, I know, and this, so that's the other thing is like my life has been such an emptying out, and even in this last 2 months, I've watched certain teachers, certain people that I thought were star seeds, or other people that were in alignment. I've watched them fall away, just in either just quietly disappearing, or in some cases like abruptly disconnecting with me, and I don't necessarily understand why. Other people coming in.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
I never heard of Shanine Mooland before a month ago. Now I've been on her show. I've watched you for a couple, at least a year or two.
Mhm.
Never would have thought I'd be talking to you as a guest. Why am I here now? Like, why are we talking? What, I didn't plan any of that. So that's this new trajectory that I think that we're
Yeah. Yeah.
we're on. And
Yeah.
feel,
People falling away and people walking in the door.
yeah, yeah,
It's interesting. Now you mentioned triggers earlier.
yeah,
You actually called it trigger, singular, when you
yeah,
were talking in regard to your relationship with your partner. But I don't really want to speak to it in terms of just the triggers or triggers associated with your partner, but in general. I love the way you described the people falling away and people walking in. I also love the way you kind of alluded, which I agree with, that certain frequencies or certain templates, let's put it that way, certain templates are becoming obsolete, such as the yogi guru template,
right.
such as the superior inferior teacher student template.
That's really important.
Now, my question is, what do you do when you get triggered? I mean, in general, you're in this space of self-realization and expanded self-awareness. You have gifts coming in, light language, and so on. What do you do in your solitude, in your day in, day out, when you get triggered by energies or people?
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about having a few months of solitude is you don't get triggered by other people and things very often,
Mhm.
So I'll give you an example this morning. I mean, one of the things about the quiet is how small a trigger can be, and then how easy it is to see something very small when you have this opportunity to grow very quiet and contemplative. Um, so, I was a little nervous about coming and talking to you today, just being on camera, and also, what are we going to talk about, and would I make it here on time, and would all the technical stuff work? But so I was just trying to sort of have my morning and, get here. and, um, and I was brushing my teeth, and the cat, there's 4 cats here. This cat, who I love, kept, he was just like in love with me this morning, and he was like standing on the sink, like while I'm trying to brush my teeth, and while I'm trying to stay chilled to just sort of get here. Um, he's just doing what a cat does, right? I mean, he's being a feline, so he's curling all around and standing in the sink and whatnot. And I just, so it was like the tiniest trigger, but he kept doing it. You know what I mean? Like every single thing that I was trying to get done to show up on time here, he was sort of getting in the way. And at one point, um, I just sort of like made this noise. Like I didn't really yell at the cat, but I just sort of like, it just kind of came out of me, this like, ah, like, like get away, get out of my way. And I mean, but I didn't say those words. I just sort of made this noise, and the cat was very startled, and he left. I mean, that sounds meaningless, and in most people's lives, which is such a hamster wheel, most of us live on this very loud hamster wheel still, of worrying about money and kids and everything. I was able to see that even that tiny little that came out of me is just frequency. Do you know what I mean? I was able to experience it,
Yeah.
see it, not be agitated, not stay.
Yeah.
I feel like 6 months ago or 2 years ago, something like that would happen.
You would have kicked the cat or hit it with your hair.
I would have I would have kicked the cat, or the cat would have knocked over something glass, and it would have shattered.
Yeah, but I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
really is like a metaphoric analogy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the words, it's not a process, it's not a particular modality. You were confronted with an energy presented itself to you.
Yeah.
And you dealt with it.
Well, and I instantly recognized the external as a reflection of where I was in that moment. So it's not about the cat.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's not
of
like,
course.
why
Yeah,
is
of course.
the cat doing it? It's like, the cat is reflecting to me my own, although slight, the slight agitation, the slight nervousness, the slight lack of relaxation, the lack of time. And so I feel that this is where we're headed. When Jason Estes, talks about, this ramping up, and everybody's going to be waking up in, January 2020, or, what's going to happen, what's it going to look like when millions or even billions of us start suddenly waking up. What's it going to be like? Are we all going to be flying around and, something else, or are we going to somehow be in these bodies building a new earth? Or is this what we're doing? Are we bringing it into these bodies?
Yeah, we're bringing it in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're bringing it in.
But I mean, don't you sometimes question that too? I mean, with all the talk and stuff, like, what is it going to mean?
I don't. First of all, I have very little use for nothing against Jason. He's a good friend of mine. I have really no use for prognostications in terms of linear time. I know what they're doing. I know it's their mission and their purpose. But I think it's also potential programming. I think we're all not fully holy and whole. So I think that we're all potentially programmers. Now, programmers in the sense of self-programming and aligning and integrating and expanding, yes, but also potential programmers of the big boogeyman, the matrix. Let's just call it that way. I don't buy into the disclosure thing, the conspiracy thing. I believe much of it to be true, but it's irrelevant. What's relevant is what we're talking about. What's relevant is that you have walked this tightrope between 3D and 5D, hearing voices, having different experiences, having a confusing twin partnership, relationship, whatever, that no one has the fucking answer for, by the way. And look where you're at.
Right.
You're in alignment. You have resources.
Just as you were saying that, I looked at the clock, and here it was 1:44. Like,
exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
you have alignment. You have proof of alignment. It's the personal journey that's making this thing go.
Yeah.
So whether 8 billion people are, if all 8 billion people are in full alignment, holy and whole, then we won't even be here. You know, I don't think it, I think what you were saying about what happens when, I think is happening now. And it
Yeah,
happens now with what you said earlier about you've learned where you're at. How do you describe that? You just be, right?
just be.
But there is some doing, I think, now that's starting to come into play with the being. Like, so you're a perfect example. You have
I am.
created this space. You created this space. You have these resources. You're good.
Yeah,
Now you're kind of get accustomed to being like, oh my God, is this really? I mean, am I really in this place? And Morgan and I can relate to that. But now it's like, okay, what do I do with it? So do. What do I do with this? What do I do with all that stuff you were talking about? What do we do with it? And I
right.
think that's where this is all starting to come into play now is all of these self actualizations of the multidimensional self are all coming together like puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
What's your piece of the puzzle? How do you, I mean, you may not know that in, with full conviction because none of us, I think, have a full handle on it because
Yeah.
there's so much stuff going on. But where do you think you're headed? What do you think you'll be getting into?
Well, d- you know, I'm not into prognostication for myself either. So I have projects that are feel big, and I could start to tell you about those, but then that would be a future story, wouldn't it? So, there's all the old stories dropping. There's the future stories that we also in a way have to drop, right? To be present. I mean, and I think this is where this masculine feminine dance, that the realization of twin consciousness, let's say,
Yeah,
or
I like that.
embodying divine masculine feminine as a yin yang kind of duality, taking it into your own body, also seeing that it can be reflected in an external body,
Yeah.
um, and not really knowing. I mean, you really not knowing where is it going, and how important is where you have already been, or the memories that come up, or the dream scape, or the edge between the I think my multidimensional aspect is, I do a lot. I think one of the things that I realize that I do is I do a lot of work in sleep, from my
Hmm.
my sleep state,
Hmm.
and probably for most of my life have been doing that without even realizing it. Um, Knowing that about myself, remembering a little bit about that aspect of my work, has given me a certain purpose, let's say, that I am now awake to, that allows me to go through days at a time where I don't run around and try to do anything to
Yeah.
prove my value to anybody.
Yeah.
And I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So most people still can't or won't or don't do that yet.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
on the other hand, as you ask, like, well, where am I headed? Like, what what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this physical me?
I
um,
think, yeah.
I don't. I can have some plans.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. I love
yeah,
what you said too. And this is one of the things I noticed, uh, and it applies to all of us.
yeah,
We talk about the evolution of, for instance, these divine essences came in and talked to me. The Pleiadians did, and they were externalized, and then they evolve into being embodied, and the voice becomes more singular. But there's also some very human parts of this transition that are part of our evolution. And I
yeah,
think one of those is that saying, "It's never them, it's always me." And I find it interesting over the last 2 years on these shows, watching the evolution of people take responsibility for everything themselves. Just like you said with the cat, it wasn't about the cat; it was about me. I was just getting a picture of me, right? But what I'm getting at is that one of the things I'm seeing happening over the last few really weeks, I wouldn't say months, is where people are not focusing so much. It's almost like the wounded healer,
Mhm.
focusing on other people. You know, they're not awake, or they're this, or they're that,
Right.
they're not doing this, or they're doing that. And I'm starting to see where more and more people, and I hope that I'm doing it. I mean, I work hard at it. Taking that responsibility for everything. I love what you said about the cat, because that whole symbiology, the symbology of what you described, if you look at the energy of it, was a perfect example. To include the poof, the twinkle of the nose when
Yeah.
you made it all come into balance.
Yeah.
So and I think that's another struggle too, is because we try to explain all these things in a human language, and it's not a human language. Like you said, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, it's a resonance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, do you in whatever you want to do, the floor is yours. Would you like to do some light language, a blessing, or anything else, or further commentary on the subject, or anything you would like to talk about or do? And there's no pressure, no, whatever you want to
Um,
do.
well, one thing that just popped up into my head right now, just, again, it is sort of story, I guess, but about where I'm headed,
Mhm.
I'm uh just I just feel like sharing it, I guess,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
to show people or share my own experience of how amazing it's been to be somewhere where I could do nothing.
Mm.
And then yet, there is movement and flow as well. So, I'm about to get on a plane next week, and I'm flying into Paris, and then I'm going to Egypt for the first time.
Yeah. So
So I'm going to be in Paris for the 12/12 gateway,
beautiful.
and then I'm going to be in Egypt for the 12/21,
Mm.
and then I'm flying back into Utah on January 11th, 1/11. Uh, why? I didn't plan, and the person that I'm going, the group that I'm going to Egypt with were was somebody that I met when I was in Morocco in April, which I went on to learn about doing retreats. I haven't done any of the work that I was supposed to do by going on the retreat to Morocco, but I met this person who was running a trip to Egypt that I felt that I needed to go on, and I signed up, and now I'm going to Egypt. One of the people that I met in Glastonbury a year ago when I went on a retreat there is coming into Egypt on the 26th. I'm leaving on the 27th. She and I are going to meet. So she will meet the people that I'm with. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up.
No, you can't. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's shocking what happens when we start on this path,
Yeah.
when we open to this path, and it is it is such a beautiful world
Yeah.
to be in this human meat suit, this body, this being, uh and yes, I have gotten resources. People would say, well, you're lucky this happened, or you're lucky that I can't do this, or I can't do that because, well, I used to do that too. I used to be somebody that never had two nickels to rub together. I couldn't travel anywhere, you know. I would have liked to go to Egypt 5 years ago, and that, you know, that just would have seemed impossible. It's very possible now. It's very easy. Um, some might say it's impractical, you know, it's costing me quite a bit of money. I'm not like a millionaire, you know, I mean, I have enough right now. I'm making a decision to do that in the now, but is it a practical decision in terms of, you know, saving money for my retirement or something? No, of course not. You know, I mean, I don't. So this is this thing where, you know, of just listening, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like just listening. And I feel like the light language and these activations and the dragons, you know, the work I've done with Susanna Mara, where these dragon code, I mean, she's brought in the most extraordinary codes with, you know, the art and the written codes that she's brought in. I know that they've activated me. I know that my experience of working with her, you know, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
touting her.
No, no,
You know what I mean? I'm just
I
saying,
like Susan.
yeah, you
I
know.
collaborated with her. She's very cool.
Yeah, well, and so this is what I guess this, you know, as we run out of time, I think this is what I want to say is and I think you've talked about this too. This is the new earth. It's this collaboration that
Mm-hmm.
will become so normal that it's the new normal.
Yeah.
And I don't understand yet how the money is going to fall away. I mean, we could have talked a whole hour about the whole money paradigm and how that seems to be collapsing and what's it going to look like instead. Um, but because you know, how are we going to collaborate as we move into a world where we're not doing it from a fixed old understanding
Mm-hmm.
of currency exchange, and we
Mm-hmm.
start to exchange at this other level? Does the currency even need to be there or not? I don't know. In terms of partnership, in terms of relationship, I mean, I've had the most extraordinary experience. At one point I was traveling with Yukia, who I was exposed to, I think, through your show, you know, probably her being on with you at some point. I ended up traveling with her. I had this activation where I understood my twin partnership as this dolphin energy at the 6D level or something, you know, some higher level. And I understood love this way as a co-creative collaboration
Mm-hmm.
of total freedom, of total coming together and moving apart. I I can't even put words to it, but I experienced it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is, so where am I going? You know, where are we going? Like, what am I creating? You know, I I don't know. I
Yeah.
could tell you a story. I could tell myself a story, but it, the only way forward that I understand is this.
Right. You are the new earth. You are. You either are the new earth or you're not the new earth.
Yeah. And I am, you know, I am
Yeah.
it.
I am that.
I
And
am that.
you're doing it. You're doing it. And I think that regardless of what anybody says, I don't care who they are. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. And the proof is in the pudding. So being in a beautiful place in Park City, you know, being in the situation you're in, going the places you're going, you're living proof. You don't have to say anything. And I think that is indicative of the new earth, because the new earth frequency doesn't really need validation. It doesn't need you know, the old paradigm uh, units of measure. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So it's interesting, and I think that it's refreshing to hear your story and see where you're at, because that's really powerful medicine. And somebody said, "Thank you for giving me hope." Yeah, it can, and you know this, it can change like that. Like it
It
changed
can
like that.
change like that.
So,
It can
so
change
big
like that.
big props to you for having the big balls to keep doing what you're doing. After, you know,
I
and,
say I grow a pair, but it's like that
mhm.
angelic, those
I should
wings, right?
stop saying etheric balls, and I should start saying etheric wings. But no, big props to you for that. And if you see Yukia, you tell her hi, and Susanna. And that's very cool too, because to know that you've actually interacted. Yuki and I have done probably 8-10 shows together, and
Yeah.
I know she's doing powerful work out there. So that's powerful.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And I wish you the very best, all blessings, always.
Thank
And
you.
and I really look forward to seeing what happens on this incredible trip that you're about to go on these important dates. So please keep us apprised of it.
I will. I will do that. Thanks so much for talking with me. It was really beautiful to connect with you one-on-one finally.
Yeah, Krista, you take care.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
Peace out, everybody. We'll see you later. Thank you.